In my previous video, I was discussing some of the reasons I had to miss the 2023 Chicago Marathon this year. This would have been my 7th marathon officially had I done it, but as a result of getting a major cold, flu kind of sickness, having inconsistent training, some work issues related to life outside of running, I ended up safely opting out of racing the Chicago Marathon. And one of those other reasons, of course, was to think about the bigger picture, which in this case was the Tokyo Marathon in 2024. And for those who have followed this channel, this is a big goal that has been on my radar since at least the end of 2019, closer to like September, October of 2019, Christmas time, when this channel kind of started around that time. And then, of course, it's been a 4 or 5 year odyssey since. So at this point, we're going to kind of talk about the roadmap to Tokyo and what we're going to do differently from the Chicago Marathon. And if you guys have any thoughts in terms of training or ideas of how to get this redemption arc running the proper way, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, if you are already subscribed to the channel, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates. So without further ado, let's kick it. So again, couple of things to note here right away is that now that the Chicago Marathon season is over, usually what happens is we go into turkey trot season. And turkey trot season for me is usually the same, or it has been for a couple of years, minus last year where I got a little bit lazy towards the end of the year and had to focus on some work stuff, okay? So in this case, two new things that we have featured. One, we have my training calendar, which week by week I'm going to be adding different distances. I have added some of the races on the calendar, but I've also added the races that I've done historically that kind of lead up to the end of the turkey trot season. So there are 3 major races that I usually do around this block, assuming I have that volume, and now I just add and reintroduce some speed into my workouts. That is the Polish Independence 10K, which in this case is on October 29th. We have the Hot Chocolate 15K race, which is a pretty popular race as well. And then we have the Turkey Trot itself, which is the North Shore Turkey Trot 10K in Highland Park, Illinois. Everything is within the Chicagoland area. I live like west, way west in the suburbs now. So there's a bit of a commute that kind of occurs, but no big deal. We get it done, right? So again, this race is coming up real soon. It's about almost less than 2 weeks now at this point. So whatever speed I've got is kind of what we're going to be rolling with. And that training plan did kind of start last week. So as you can see, I've X'd out some dates or some numbers, which is the mileage I was looking to roughly do at this point in time. That first week, if done properly, would have been about 45 miles. But at this point, it's about 41. So I'm not totally off the mark, but I did get about more than 40 miles. So immediately, that's better than training I've done historically, right? So I try to approach this in a more dynamic kind of style. And what I mean by that is that if I could hit at least 40 miles per week, I will up the next week's distance and still have, your tempo run, your track sessions, your strides, the long run, and try to commit to them as best as possible and try to avoid the treadmill if I can. There are some times, especially at this weather in Illinois, where the treadmill is kind of an inevitable choice, or you try to run during lunchtime when it's like noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and it's like your warmest, okay? So last week, again, 41 miles. I did not do my 15K long run. I did end up doing a 6.2K kind of progression session, so we still have to get a 15K run in here somewhere. So I'm recording this on Monday, October 16th. So if all goes well, I will be running about 9 miles at some point tonight. It's going to be a long run makeup kind of style run, and then, the next couple of days we have like 5.5, 10K, another 5.5, and then I have to decide which one's going to be the tempo and which one's going to be our track sessions, of course. And then my long run will be on Sunday, which will be a 10-mile run, but then at the same time, I'm also going to be traveling to Houston for a work-style engagement at that point. So that next week, I'm going to have some distances, mark them on my calendar, and just be prepared when I return from Houston to basically race. So that's kind of our turkey trot season. As you can see, we have the Polish Independence 10K right there. We have the Hot Chocolate 15K right there. And then we have the turkey trot right there. Now, after this turkey trot season is over and we've got some speed back in the legs and we're kind of in more of a mid to pseudo long distance kind of training on board, is when I plan on rolling in the marathon training 6 months before Tokyo, okay? Because I want to do this right. I want to get as much volume early on as possible. So by the time I'm doing speed workout and speed sessions and those longer workouts during the winter months and like winter days, I want them to feel as smooth as possible and just essentially feel good on like the longer runs when the time comes for them, because I know I can do them. I know I have done 80, 90 mile weeks in the middle of winter running outside, like zero issue. It's just a case of having the morale and the stamina to do it. So building that volume early is going to be extremely important. So that leads us into some of the races I'm looking at for the Tokyo Marathon training block. And these are kind of specifically chosen based on location to better resemble the conditions for racing the Tokyo Marathon and which ones are going to be most ideal for those longer trainings. So we are looking at some races in Texas, again, possibly the Hot Chocolate 15K in Houston, which will be January 27th, potentially. Otherwise, the Miami Half Marathon on January 28th is going to be my next option. Or I could do both if I could get the travel from Houston to Miami sorted out pretty well, which is not totally impossible. I've actually seen a good way to do it schedule-wise, so not totally out of scope to be able to do this type of training plan. But there will be a race somewhere in between then in February that will lead to the Tokyo Marathon. But again, this is just the rough bricks of what I'm expecting to do differently leading up to the Tokyo Marathon. So I leave this up here as it is right now, just to give kind of the pseudo plan, because I would like to know your plans for the Tokyo Marathon, how you intend to train for it. If you have like a particular race you do somewhere in the country or outside of the United States that gets you prepared for this. Because I've not trained for a marathon, or I've at least raced a marathon in the winter, spring months of like the US calendar since at least 2019, 2020, before, you know, the world kind of shut down. So that's just something I'm leaving here on the board of what the game plan is next and how I intend to make up for my big L of missing the Chicago Marathon due to bad training, the flu, and other personal issues. So I will leave the video here. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.